Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have an anonymous question that you'd like to send me, you can go to www.asksean.org. And so in today's video, I'm exploring this is from a recent interview segment. And I'm exploring this question around, is there hope when we're just tolerating each other, when a couple is just tolerating each other? And so, yeah, just exploring that really hard place where a lot of times is when couples are beginning therapy, as they've been tolerating each other quite some time, and then eventually they end up in my office. So yeah, this is kind of a little bit of exploring around that. So, when someone says, we're just tolerating each other, or that couple, they seem like they're just tolerating each other. Part of what that tells me is that they've either lost or probably more likely they haven't yet developed the ability to be really vulnerable with each other about painful things. And so the relationship has increasingly become this just sort of kind of not even cohabitating, but like sort of co-surviving, really. Where both of them are hurting, where there's all sorts of wounds that are going unaddressed, and there's sort of this like kind of probably not spoken, but sort of this understanding, like this Cold War, if I could make a historical analogy, understanding of like, okay, we're just not going to go really too much of any place real because it's too dangerous and we're going to F it up, or well, they'd more so say, you're going to F it up, but it can be hard to have like mutual, like if there was enough vulnerability to like have mutual like ownership, that would be like huge in of itself. But this sense of like the other person's just going to hurt me, why try? I'm not going to keep putting myself out there. And so that's a really hard period. It's not the end of the story by any means. But that kind of place, it can have a fairly strong gravitational pull, because it's like you're still having relationship or it's a semblance of relationship. But you're not going the places you need to go, so there's not a whole lot of like true intimacy, true emotional intimacy, and so it's just like you're playing it safe, but you sort of hate, the state of things, but you don't want to leave because you're still wanting like some tiny bit of connection that you still have, usually in these kinds of scenarios there's kids involved, so it's like that's part of the thing. So yeah, the good news is, like I said, this isn't the end of the story. A lot of times in those situations, if I'm working with a couple, like I will, I mean, it depends, but a lot of times I'll shift to working with them one-on-one. And I say it depends because it depends on how reactive they are in each other's presence. But typically, if they're at that point where they're mostly just tolerating, they aren't going to be able to be vulnerable with each other in the room, and if anyone starts to get vulnerable, then the other's like gonna like jump on that, out of a hurt reactivity kind of thing, which then of course kills the vulnerability, which is why they're having such a hard time being vulnerable. So so that's where I work with them one-on-one, so that we can start to build some experience of like that they can be vulnerable and it can be safe, that they can be vulnerable and like somebody can actually meet them, that they can be met in their pain. And also really what's cool about that is that then it gives the space to reveal the ways in which they're participating in the cycle, because typically it's not as simple as like, oh, we start working one-on-one and then we immediately like go into the pain and helping it heal. Like, no, there's usually lots of layers of protection and resistance, even though they know cognitively, oh, this is a therapist, I should be able to trust them, even though there's parts of them can feel really safe with me and really trusting of me. Like, so it's not personal. It's not about me. It's about just that habit, that pattern of I'm not going to be vulnerable with anybody, not even myself. And so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be vulnerable with this strange dude with a beard. Like, so it's like, so by removing the partner from the equation, we are able to start to shine a light on like the ways in which they have been co-creating this mess. Not out of any maliciousness, but just out of normal human brokenness. And so then we start to be able to gently, kind of work on that. That like, there's a way in which you've partly chosen this. Not that you meant to. Not that you're trying to hurt yourself, but this is your background set you up to make these kinds of choices. And this is what we have to unwind, and help you build emotional muscles around so that like you can do something different and finally have more of the relationship you're longing for. So yeah, so that's the good news, is that like that work can be done. We're capable of that. And I help people do that all the time. It's not quick, never as quick as we want it to be. It's very painful, but it's better than the alternative, because tolerating is just a bitter, slow death. It's like you're just, every day you get up and you pour your morning bottle of poison, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna down, drink some more poison, and I'm surviving, but I'm not dead, but I'm not really living, and, kind of killing my heart, and I'm, raging inside, but even that's kind of slowly dying as I'm just like numbing myself. And I mean, like that's a horrible way to live. Like that is not much of a life. So yeah, the good news is it can be way, way, way better than that.